Two-minute Photoshop tricks.
Here we go. Hey everybody, and welcome to the 24th edition of 2-Minute Photoshop Tricks. I'm Kent Conklin, and today we're looking at fake hand coloring. As always, we're going to cruise through these tricks fairly quickly, so feel free to pause or rewind the podcast if we're going too fast. And remember, always work on a copy of the image, not the original. And now, on with the trick. Hey everyone, today we're taking a look at how to make fake hand-colored images in Photoshop. So you might be asking yourself, what are fake hand-colored images? Well, hand coloring of images is a technique used to take black and white photographs and add color to them with either a set of dyes or some sort of coloring agent. You'll often see hand-colored images where much of the image is left black and white and only certain objects or subjects in the image are colored. In this trick, we'll actually start with a color image and work backwards to achieve a hand-colored effect without all the work of hand coloring. This trick can add a dramatic flair to your image or add emphasis to a subject in a photo. But beware, this trick can also lead to images that look cheesy or cliche, so pick your images carefully and don't overuse this trick. So open up a color image in Photoshop to fake hand color. I find that images with a very specific subject with a larger background often work best. Also, images with striking color in one specific area also tend to work well. Once you have an image opened, duplicate the background or image layer by dragging it to the little sticky note at the bottom of the layers palette. Next, create a hue saturation adjustment layer by clicking on the button at the bottom of the layers palette that looks like a circle that is half white and half black. Then select the hue saturation option from the pop-up menu. A new dialog box will pop open with 3 sliders. Drag the slider marked saturation all the way to the left. This will make your image appear black and white. Next, select your brush tool from the Tools palette and set your foreground color to black. You can quickly set your foreground color to black in Photoshop by pushing the D key on your keyboard to set the default foreground and background colors of white and black. Then push the X key to swap the foreground and background colors. Make sure your adjustment layer is selected in the Layers palette, and then paint with your brush tool in your image window on the objects or subject that you want to colorize. You may need to adjust your brush size and zoom in on your image to paint your object accurately. You should notice the areas that you paint should return to their original colors. If you accidentally paint on an area that you don't want to be colored, simply hit the X key on your keyboard to switch the foreground color to white. Then paint over the area to turn it back to black and white. To return to coloring, just simply push the X button to restore the black color as your foreground color. After you have your objects or subjects colored, we're going to actually tone down these colors a little bit, since most hand-colored images are not as intense as straight color images. Make sure your adjustment layer is selected in the Layers palette, and then go to the Image menu and select the Adjust option, then the Levels option. A new dialog box will pop open, and at the very bottom of the dialog you'll see a little gradient from left to right with 2 little arrows pointing up at it on either end of the gradient. One is black and one is white. Drag the black one to the right while you keep an eye on your image. You should notice that the parts you painted are getting less intense and the output levels numbers are changing. Adjust your image so that the intensity looks good to you. Then click OK. Now, if if you want, you can add just a hint of color back into the rest of your image by adjusting the opacity of the hue saturation adjustment layer. This step is totally optional, and some images will actually look better if you leave the background completely black and white, while others might look better with just a hint of color. To change the opacity of the adjustment layer, simply make sure it's selected in the Layers palette, and then click the arrow button at the top of the Layers palette just to the right of the word opacity. Drag the pop-up slider around while watching your image and pick a value that works for you. I tend to use a very high percentage of 95% or more so that the difference between the background and the subjects is very clear. The final step is also optional, but I think adds just a little bit more of a hand-done look to the image. So, if you want to continue, just select the copied image layer from your Layers palette, the one we made earlier of the background, and go to the Filter menu. Then select the Artistic option, then Poster Edges. A new dialog box will pop open. In this dialog box, I set the edge thickness value to 0, and the edge intensity to 0, and the posterization to either 3 or 4. You can experiment with these settings to get results that look good for you. Just keep in mind the preview of this effect is showing your